Welcome to Life in the Music Business, a master class with Professor Pooch and your host, BACEFACE.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to Life in the Music Business with Professor Pooch. How you doing, Pooch?
I'm doing good. And remember, it's self-empowerment for the music business entrepreneurs. And most of the people listening to this, whether they know it or not, are entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
And they just, if they're a musician or they, have their record company or whatever, if you're not working for anybody else, you're working for yourself. You're an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Especially, if you're aiming to make a living out of it, definitely.
Yeah, it's fun working for yourself because then you get to make your own rules and do what you want to do. I mean, to be honest with you, if I worked for somebody else, like I'm like you, one, I would be a terrible employee, and two, for me, it wouldn't add up at all because like I have multiple streams of income, and that working at a 9 to 5 would just be my one source of income. That would be taking
And
up
you'd be
all of
worn
my
out by
energy.
then. You'd be worn out by then. And yeah, I mean, you'll still have a little energy to do some things, but you've lost 8 hours of your day plus travel time and things like that. Yeah. And well, just to show people, I mean, being entrepreneurs, we are shooting this show at 3:30 a.m. Okay. And we're going to be shooting another episode at 5 p.m. the same day, even though I get mixed up when today and tomorrow is on any of these things. Everybody is. Everybody's getting their days mixed up. It's getting worse and worse. It's a very strange
The
thing.
way I treat it is because I mean we stay up super late. I treat it when I go to sleep and I wake up, that's the next day because technically right now we're in between, we're Friday and Saturday. But for me, my day started yesterday at 7 p.m. because I had a long day. I ended up staying up all night, and then when I got back home, I was like, you know what? Let me get some stuff done that I have to get done. I'm already awake, and then I went to sleep at like noon after being up since like 5 o'clock yesterday.
Well, it's the old adage. Well, it's the new adage for me, but with God didn't create alarm clocks. That's what the title really represents. It's a book on professorpooch.com. It's a that's a self-empowerment book. That's how we're working this show, just like self-empowerment. But the idea is alarm clocks, God didn't create alarm clocks. Alarm clocks is part of what I would call the Industrial Revolution. Because all of a sudden, starting the 18, I don't know when exactly, but way back hundreds, people had to get up at a certain time. It didn't matter if they were sleepy or tired or whatever. Okay, they had to get up.
Mhm.
And it's become a symbol of the industrial ages, the alarm clock. It wakes you up and stuff like that. The point is that we were made for that, really. And this is not the industrial, I mean, this is the digital age, folks. More and more people are becoming entrepreneurs.
It's crazy. And a lot of people are, believe it or not, as divided as our country is, with everything that's been happening recently, with the stocks and different things, this is just side note, that everybody's starting to band together and understanding that the system has been controlling us for too long. So this entrepreneurship is really going to be huge for the coming years because it gives power back to you. And yes, you have to put in work, and whatever you put in is what you're going to get out of it. But at the end of the day, you take those couple of years to build it up, and it'll pay you more than anything else would have ever paid you because you followed your intuition, your destiny, and your heart to be able to accomplish your goals.
And you're doing something you love to do. If you don't love to do something, why are you
Yeah.
doing
And I mean, there are some people I will note this. There are some people that will not necessarily find their true passion is something that sparks the fire underneath them and they can't stop doing it every day. A lot of people are just going to be them trusting themselves and going throughout their life and letting everything take course the way that it was supposed to. You're not supposed to overthink everything. Nowadays we're too detail oriented, and you just have to go with the flow. So don't be over stressful. Don't be too hard on yourself. Just go with the flow.
it? It's called paralysis by analysis. That's overthinking.
Yeah.
Uh, I-
I have that syndrome. I definitely do.
Well, that's where going back to when I first started using computers in the mid '80s, and I was online. There was no internet. It was bulletin boards and stuff like that. One of the people I would speak to a lot was Bruce Swedian. And Bruce Swedian, one of the all-time top engineers, he just died.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, he just passed away. But if you guys
Yeah.
don't know him, you better look him up because he is the godfather of all of this. He started back
Oh,
in the
well,
50s.
we were having a conversation, and those days you didn't talk. You typed, basically.
Yeah.
From what I remember, it's like another look. We're talking 35 years ago, or yeah, 35 years ago. And he was talking about a couple of major things that he taught me. Was one thing is what I just brought up: paralysis by analysis. People overthink things. And we talked about in the last episode or two about when they're doing mixes, they want it so fine, so fine. How does it feel, folks? If it feels good, yeah, of course, that to be clear and make sense and understand the words and all that kinds of stuff. But it should feel good. Don't start analyze good. You can analyze something forever. I mean,
Of course. I mean, you can analyze. I've had songs that I've been sitting on for the last 5 or 6 years, and believe me, the one thing I'm really good at is being a pack rat when it comes to stuff that I've created. So I have a digital footprint of everything I've ever made from the first song I've ever
well,
exported out of
you're
one of the
lucky.
programs.
You're a lucky person. I need to find a cassette deck. I have a bunch of older songs because I know songs are timeless. Yeah, the arrangements and production's got to change, but songs are songs. I mean, and stuff like that. But what you remind me of is that well, Make It Happen, that song, I wrote the chords to that. The whole chord progression of that song and the song, most of the song, back in the late 1970s.
Wow.
And I just could not finish it. And it just wasn't falling together. And all of a sudden, about 8 years ago, 9 years ago, I don't remember, I said, it needs a bridge. So I found the right bridge for it, in my opinion, and got the words done with, I think I wrote it with my ex-wife. Yeah. Yeah. My ex-wife and I get along fine as long as we're not in the same property. But she's a very creative person, a very good writer. Okay. But where the hell was I? Oh, yeah, it was Bruce Sweetie and stuff. The other thing besides the paralysis by analysis, this sounds so simple and people don't think about it. And it makes so much sense. We were talking about, I forget, it's 40 years ago. The idea is when you're mixing a recording, picture yourself looking at an artist on this stage. Okay. So, for example, now what's in the center? Usually the vocalist, the rapper, or singer, and the bass drum, usually. Okay. Yes, they don't conflict the sound wise and stuff. Now, the hi hat might be just a little bit over. The toms are, and it should be reflected in the mix by giving things depth, by reverb, EQ, separation. These are things you learn when, it takes years to get your ears, as I've always said.
Yeah.
And he laid it out so simply because I was just, back then I was just at the end of my artist days. I wasn't, as far ahead on all the production and everything like that myself. But yeah, it was just so simply laid out. I was never an engineer before that. Yeah, I did producing, but I never engineered until I got my studio. And that, luckily, there was a thing called the PAN Network, Professional Artist Network. And it was just, I still talk to people once in a while, remember it. But back then, there was no internet. It was just, you had a bulletin board. I think I was with Delphi or a network. And eventually in the 90s, they connected the networks.
Mm.
And then blew it up, It's nothing like it was back then. And the old jokes, people can't believe it, but I had one of the first computers. It was a Mac, and there was no hard drives. It was all floppy disks. And the thing is that I bought one of the first hard drives, couldn't go inside because it was big, 20 megabyte hard drive.
Wow.
Now, if anybody knows anything, I mean, we're talking now gigabytes, terabytes.
We're talking about one of the songs I just exported that I worked on was 40 megabytes.
There you go. There you go. So we can get into some
It's
things.
great. It's a side note too. I actually have the first floppy disk that I ever like coded on with my dad back when I was like probably 3 or 4 years old. He was into computers my whole life, so I'm very technical with things, and he still has the floppy disk. It says Johnny's first floppy disk, and it's literally I think I just wrote something crazy in Microsoft. Like it was like that was probably Microsoft. Like that was probably DOS. That wasn't even like 95 yet.
Yeah, it was
Nah, it
back
was definitely
then
95. But
until they took the GUI, graphical user interface, where you use a mouse and a clicker. It was DOS. Yeah, it was a language, a computer language. Here we are teaching computer language. This is funny as hell because I like to run away from all this stuff. That's why eventually I said, all right, let somebody else do the recording. I don't have the time to learn, let alone use these programs that people are using nowadays. And God bless them, I need them, they need them. I mean, there's some definite advantages of digital over analog. Analog has that warmth and fullness, but digital, God, you can cut and paste.
course.
Back then, it was spliced tape. It went to the floor. You had to find the right splice to put it back if you needed a certain time.
Yeah, that's not fun. That is not fun at all. But nowadays with Pro Tools, Pro Tools is all I use, and it is amazing the things you can do and how quick you can do them. Like there's so many hotkeys and things you can just push to.
Yeah, well, that's learning hotkeys on
Yeah.
any computer program saves a bunch of times. I used to have to get people to, hey, you can right click on a PC, and all these other things pop up.
Yeah, it's
But
crazy actually. If I was able to show this, the mouse that I use the trackball. I'm not sure if anybody's familiar of the trackball, but you're not
yeah,
gonna, you're not gonna be able to see it. But
no, I know where a trackball is. Yeah.
every single one, like there's 4 buttons on here with the big ball in the middle, and
Well, it's a laptop, right?
no,
No, it's not a laptop.
no. It is. I wish I could just move my camera for a second. Give me 1 second.
So no, I just wondered if it was. Yeah,
Boom, there it is.
right.
Check it out.
I could never use that. That would drive me crazy.
Oh, it is my best friend because there's so many buttons on here, but each one is set to a specific shortcut in Pro Tools. So I don't even have to touch my
Oh, well,
keyboard.
that's another ballgame. That
Yeah,
makes sense. I understand.
yeah. So I don't even have to touch my keyboard at all, and it's super fast for me, but it works. And I mean, Pro Tools is king, and I don't care what anybody says. Pro Tools is the way to go.
Yeah, as long as it can keep up with all the upgrades. Whenever Mac makes an upgrade, then Pro Tools goes crazy for a while.
Yeah, you have to be really careful with when you update your stuff because if you update it wrong and you go too far ahead, sometimes you can't go backwards and make it really difficult. So you could like some of my software would just completely not work. And my recent upgrade actually, I'm on Mac. I went up from like High Sierra to Catalina, and
I
I
remember
lost
that
I
one.
lost half of my plugins because the whole infrastructure went from 32-bit to 64-bit.
Yeah, but how do you fix that?
I just got the new versions of the plugins, or some of the ones that I lost I didn't really use anyway, so I
Oh
just
man, but that's a way to siphon money off
yeah.
somebody to keep having to get new plugins. That's ridiculous. Things should be backwards compatible from that.
Yeah, it's kind of tough. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not, but it really depends on what it is. But I mean, I just use a majority, believe it or not, majority of the stuff that I use is stock to Pro Tools. It comes with Pro Tools, and you don't need all these fancy plugins. I use a couple of things that I bought, like Fab Filter and different things for stuff, but keep
But
it simple.
but that's why some of the people keep the older versions of Pro Tools because, well, I have this theory I like is just if it works, use it. If it's what you want, use it. Yeah, of course, if you need to do other stuff, but I mean, I only need to do certain things here. I'm just working with one voice talking usually.
Yeah.
So,
I make all my money from mixing, as everybody probably already knows by now. But we're 30 episodes deep, which is incredible. Honestly, I sometimes forget that we even do this show. It's
yeah,
crazy.
because it's fun. And like we said last show, I don't think we ever said it before. All 30 episodes are totally unscripted. It's life in the music business, and that's what we're discussing, and we get into everything. Interesting thing I heard today. Interesting. I did not know this because, people always saying, well, which distributor should I use to distribute my stuff? Well, I'm not going to rate them, but it's very interesting the numbers that I found out today. And that is DistroKid is number one by a mile. It's 2 million people. CD artists. CD Baby has 650,000 and TuneCore has 200,000. The interesting part about this, and it's good to understand some business and how could see CD Baby and TuneCore. Well, CD Baby I think was earlier, it used to be CD Now, I forget. But the idea is CD Baby and TuneCore were like the first two real distributors, that they were called an aggregator. An aggregator is someone that takes care of putting it every place. They aggregate, they just put it every place. Okay. Now, the question is, I always would ask the question why. DistroKid came years and years later. Now, how come DistroKid is way up here? And oh, by the way, there's 10 gazillion aggregators.
Oh.
Everybody wants to be one. And I just want people just see, I learned a lesson back in the 80s. I had a DX7 and I had this program for the DX7 that I could use on my computer on a floppy disk. Okay. It was a program and I bought it. Okay, give it a shot. I kept going from problem to problem. There was in every version of the software back then. See, I learned a lesson not to buy a program the first time it comes out. Give it a little time, let them get the bugs out, because big business does this. You'll notice this with all the things. They don't ask permission to do something, they ask forgiveness. So they're going to put things out that even have flaws.
They are.
And because, in other words, the world is their beta tester. I mean, when they're doing regular programs, I mean, I've been a beta tester for a lot of programs. You test it out and see if it works, but they just put it out to the public and let the public be the guinea pig and kind of stuff,
Yeah.
But
That could ruin your entire rig if you're not careful, to be honest with you. So people know that. Don't.
oh yeah, things. Oh my God, back then especially. But let's go back to where we were with the DistroKid and stuff. How does DistroKid, who's so much newer than CD Baby and TuneCore, have so many more people so quickly? Well, a lot of it has to do with Spotify. And Spotify invested in DistroKid. Therefore, it pays for Spotify to push DistroKid. And it just,
Makes a lot of sense.
that's why if you learn business and keep asking, it's like we were talking about the other day about writing a song, keep asking why to get down to the lowest common denominator of the words, is subject matter.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing here. My thing was, well, why is DistroKid up there? Because, people send me stuff to, hey, Pooch, look this over, these aggregator sites where they, distributed supposedly, and a lot of them are ripples. But DistroKid has money from Spotify in there.
Which goes to show that every major corporation, they work with each other. Every major corporation work with each other. Like they know what's going on. They have insider information, all that fun stuff. But what you have to know is that the world is changing, and everything that is going on is going towards a positive thing where we can all become or go back to being, you know what I mean, unified in some way.
Well, I hope in some way we all get unified. It'd be a much more peaceful and sane world to deal with. I'll tell you that. But no, we're evolving. I mean, everything's evolving, and the virus just made it evolve faster
It did.
because it made us all, ooh, okay, here. It's like a wake up call. It's how you look at something. Remember the good old thing of it's your attitude to anything. And oh yeah, it's how you look at something.
Yeah, but
But yeah, but going back to the old thing and the new thing, the old program, it didn't work. And I like to give companies chances to become something, or just see them fall off the face of the earth, or have somebody like Facebook buy them. They keep, everybody's buying everybody else, which is what you were mentioning. And my joke, it's not going to work exactly like this, but by 2050, there'll be one company that will own all the other companies.
I really don't think you're wrong, though, if you want me to be honest.
Well, if you think about it, people are shocked when they hear this. A lot of the big food companies are owned by the tobacco companies. How about that one?
Yeah, there's a bubble burster for most.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like I forget which names are which names, but I don't know tobacco company names.
You do if you're interested in that, I'm sure you can do your research on Google and you'll find out all
yeah, everything's in the search engines, which brings up a very interesting topic. People complain about Facebook. They complain about Google. They complain about Amazon. Google, Amazon, ASCAP BMI are what I call necessary evils. They don't always help the young upcoming person and stuff like that. And they're using you and they're this and that. But can you do without them is the question. And the search engines, I mean, God, you used to have to read through tons of books to look something up. Now you just have to know how to ask the right question. And you don't even have to type it. You can talk it into it. Hey, Siri, look up, Alexa, Google, oh boy.
Yeah, there's so much information, but the amount of knowledge that people have about certain topics has been decreasing because with all the mass information, it's impossible for one person to process all of it. So everything's more scattered nowadays. I feel like back in the day, everybody was more focused on like specific goals or specific things that they were doing. Now it's evolved into something much bigger.
And a problem that was becoming more and more so with technology and really brought out heavy by the virus is people do not know how to work as a team. We did it. Well, I used to teach at the Art Institute of Philadelphia, and for 13 years. And what they would do is once in a while, they'd ask the advertisers to come in who the school placed our graduating students with, and they would say, well, how are our students? Do you think the schooling is working right for them, for you to put in your positions and stuff? They said, look, your students are very knowledgeable, but they can't work as part of a team. They're there with and well, back then there wasn't even, a lot of the phone stuff nowadays, but even back then they were glued to their computers and doing their arts and stuff. I mean, it was an art institute. It was all about music arts and all that stuff like that. And they didn't know how to work as a team. And that is a problem with even with Zoom. I mean, yeah, or whatever we're using, nowadays for video and stuff. You could see people, but it's not the same thing.
It's just like this. I equate that to like me sending a beat or a song to an artist for them to write to. It's like it's not the same as being in the room with them and being able to feel the energy that both of you have together.
Oh yeah, that's a very good point. A very good point. Yeah, there's just nothing like that kind of stuff. And which brings up something we have discussed before, but it just popped up really heavy and it was a whole article about it. And that is this one artist put out a song, a heartfelt song that, he got this loop from somebody or whatever, leased it or took it from wherever. And it became an overnight hit because it was so sincere and everything like this. Okay. And it's starting to do well, really well. Another person comes up to him and says, look, I'd like to sign you to my, to work. I'd like to help work with you and move you ahead. And for some reason, it didn't go into why it didn't work out or why it wasn't able to work out. So when this artist turned down this guy or whatever, or they couldn't come to agreement, what the guy did was simply went to the producer who did the track and bought the track, bought the exclusive. Now this guy owns the track, and he's, and he was defending himself, in the article and stuff. But look, folks, yeah, sit down with somebody, work up and back and feel and stuff like that. I used to enjoy that what I would do, had an emulator too in my studio, and people would sit there with me and I would say, well, how's this bass line? How's this feel? I'm doing the keys, obviously, it's a sampler and things like that. And we would work together on it. And between the two of us, we would get an amazing sound because I always found out that I would find something they and I both liked. You know what I mean? When we're doing the track, but we're doing a track to the song. See, the old way of doing it, and it's still done nowadays in certain instances. You get the rhythm tracks down. That's it could be a loop or whatever, but you want to do the song. Then do the vocals, then add the extra instruments and sweetening and stuff. So you're not tripping over the vocalist. I mean, I still see too many guitar players playing over the top of the words, and you can't do that. You're covering up the song and stuff like that. But stepping outside the box and coming up with creative answers for your business, your legal, for anything. I mean, you got to keep it legal, but creative and stuff like that. And learn how to use this knowledge that you're learning. Yes, you're going to learn definitely going to learn some knowledge here. But the point is, watch how we use it and what could happen and what distro kids, okay, oh yeah, they want to give us some money. That's power. And Spotify and they're thinking they use money with this case, but to creatively do whatever you want to do in your career and your life, but you need the knowledge, you need to understand how things work in the music industry and learn the books and courses, which you can find them, and plenty of free stuff on professorpooch.com. At the same point in time is what we do in this show is how to use it creatively. And I'm going to start bringing it up more. That's what we are doing. We're creatively taking knowledge of the industry that we've learned from books and courses and experience, which you can't replace. And I'm sure you could speak miles on that, working in a major studio in New York, BACEFACE. I mean, on what you learn and feel, just keeping your ears open to the other well-known people that are in the building. You know what I mean?
There's so many things to learn, and you just once you get introduced to that level of professionalism that is held out there at the studio I work at, it's unmatched, and it's really something that I envy, and I'm very appreciative that I'm able to do, because I mean, just being there with, I mean, our mic closet is endless. Our synthesizer closet is endless. I mean, our guitar, we have over 40-50 guitars, acoustic, electric. We have
and that's so cool, but you don't need all of them to do what you do. And I do want you to get rid of the word envy, which is, you shouldn't be envious. It's just cool. Yeah, it's neat seeing all that stuff that they're choosing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I mean, for me, it's like it's
eye-opening. Yes.
yeah, it's like being in the NBA is the way I could see it. Because it's like being in the professional league. Like, you can tell the difference. Like, it's
Yeah, but what you're also learning is, let's say you have all these keyboards or all these whatever instruments. You're learning how each of them sounds.
Yeah.
And, you know, they each have their reason. I mean, they're not going to buy 50 different keyboards unless there's a reason for it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they have an emphasis on vintage with the modern technology. So we have every major microphone you'd ever want, and I mean, just I've never really majority of the microphones I've never really had access to because I was never at a place that was at such a high level, you know. And unfortunately, the music recording industry is a little different than it was back in the day. I mean, there's the recording studios are barely surviving unless they really have a strong clientele base to be able to
Oh,
make money on, you know?
I co-run the Philadelphia recording community that had a lot of big studios. None of them exist anymore. There's no real, I mean, there's medium sized, but not the real big, the Sigma Sound studios. Well, they took up a lot of real estate because they're big rooms, man. When I put my rock band in the recording room, we took up about 1/16 of the space, and we were spread out of that room because they did strings there, they did horns there, you know, they had whole orchestras there and stuff like that.
Incredible.
Yeah, but the funny part is what they're keeping a lot of this technology is just like you have a tube microphone.
Yeah.
And that was natural in those days. That's what they used, tube microphones. And Mike still has a bunch of those old ones, I'm sure. Uh,
Yeah,
oh,
he has a lot of he has the entire Sigma Sound vocal chain I've seen that he posted about, which is incredible, honestly.
oh boy. Yeah, I mean, we joke about it, but look, there's a lot of advantages to technology. Everything has its good and bad side. But I remember our reverb, like I mentioned in one of the previous episodes, our reverb back in the late 60s to the early 70s and stuff was a room that reverberated because it was like, you know, without soundproofing. So, and they could adjust it. They made the room just right and had certain kinds of microphones placed at certain, and you got that's how you got your delay from microphone to microphone. I mean, it was done real, and then they digitally figured out a way to do it. I mean, but some of the sounds back then were warm. I mean, that reverb, because it was an actual room that they had treated and stuff to sound a certain way. It reminds me of the growing up, and I think everybody's been through this. When you're in a school singing in the bathroom,
Mm,
the echoes in the bathroom of a school. I mean, that's what we would sing, yeah,
yeah.
and stuff like that. Oh, gee.
It's still there are some studios still, I think Capitol Records out in Cali. They still have their reverb
Didn't they
chambers.
close that? I thought they closed that. Maybe I'm wrong. I
It
saw it.
I mean, they still have the studios.
Oh, okay.
So they still the studios have reverb chambers that are underground
Wow.
that they still use to I saw Al Schmidt do a whole thing on out there at Capitol Studios, which was incredible. It was mixed with the masters. For anybody that's looking to like really learn some really cool stuff from some legendary people, mixed with the masters is cool when it comes to engineering and production and stuff like that.
And by the way, because I know we don't want to make this a 2-hour show, so I'm going to end with something that's attached to what you were just talking about. Engineers and learning. And I've seen this, the people in the Philadelphia recording community that own all kinds of studios and stuff that have been around forever and stuff like that have seen what's happening is they open these colleges and stuff where you get a degree, and I'm not going to name them, but there's 3 main ones in the United States. But you get a degree in audio engineering and things like this and stuff like that. Okay. And when we were having a conversation, our guys would not, nobody in the community would hire anybody from them for their studio as an engineer. Why? Because these, keep asking that question, why, right? Because what they did was in these schools, they kept saying, all right, you're going to get into you're going to take these other courses right now, and you're going to learn this stuff, and you're going to be in the studio next term. And then it's the next term, and it's the next term, to make a very long story short, don't spend $10 gazillion to get a college degree in audio engineering. There is no, remember I said a bunch of times, there's nothing like experiencing it. There are some great courses, especially it's a problem right now with the virus, but it probably could be worked out in some places because they only have like 6 or 7 students at a time, and it's all hands on. You actually learn how to use the equipment that they tease you with.
Yeah.
You need to learn. I mean, I learned from Bruce Reedy and a lot of the top engineers and producers, but there's nothing like having my own studio and making tons of mistakes.
Yeah. And especially the one thing I'll say for a lot of people that are looking to really start or in there or want to take the next level, 2 things. One, internships. Okay. They are so valuable. It's an internship or an apprenticeship. An apprenticeship is a paid internship. Okay. So either one of those, I mean, don't worry about the money. Don't chase the money. You go and you learn and you do what you got to do to be able to get that knowledge that you need. If you're there interning and you're around the people that are moving and shaking and the people that you want to be working with and with the clientele that you want to be working with, then don't worry about the money. Go after the knowledge and learning, and that's where everything is. Everything that I ever learned was from internships. I've had 7 or 8 different internships at different studios. I just found what worked best for me, and I just gravitated towards that.
And along with that, with what you're doing is also meeting people. You're meeting fellow engineers. You never know who knows who. There are so many people that have started out as an engineer in a studio and, just in a rough way, they worked their way up. And all of a sudden, and this has happened with studio musicians a lot too, is that the artist likes the engineer, the artist likes the guitar player. Hey, you want to go on tour with me?
Yeah.
And major engineers still do it. I know, like Phil Nicolo is one of the Butcher brothers from Rough House Records with all these gold records and all this stuff like that. He was front of the house for, I'll explain what that is. Front of the house for, I forget her name I forget her name. It doesn't matter. The point is that's special. Oh, front of house. In major concerts, there's 2 engineers. This is the sound that goes out to the audience and the sound that the artist on stage is front of house. You'll see FOH a lot of times like that. But that's how you make it as an engineer. As a regular engineer, you're not going to make a lot of money. But if you get like a Bruce Reedy in and all of a sudden Quincy Jones sees, and he worked with Quincy Jones for how many years? Ridiculous amount of years, from the 50s, 58 on to through the 70s or whatever, 80s, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you never know. And then engineering becomes a way of living. But as we were talking about in a previous episode, it's also very important that if you're starting out in your own place, to be multiple streams of income, you always want to keep building and getting the best out of you. You should be curious, why? Ask why, be curious. Hey, let's try this, let's try that, and it turns into you might get into things you didn't think you'd ever like. Tune in for the next episode, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. Tune in for the next episode.